I'm focused on his spirit cause it keeps me from his fire. The Holy Ghost is with me, so my fear I leave behind. My sins were all diminished when he took that breath and died. And if you think I'ma give up on my God, the devil is a lie. The devil is a lie. The devil is a lie.
Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about the Texas primary. It is over. Jasmine Crockett risked it all on winning in the Senate, which seemed like a weird thing anyway, because she definitely wasn't going to win in the general. Maybe she thought she could. I don't know, but she had to abandon her seat, so she's going to be done in Congress, so she couldn't run again at the same time. So that might be cool, but apparently her pastor, I believe, ran in her seat and is also pretty radical too. So you're not done with radical people just because Crockett's gone, but wasn't too fond of her. But I did want her to win over James Talarico. I think James Talarico, not because I'm so threatened by him or anything like that. I just think he's one of the slimiest politicians. He gives me Pete Buttigieg vibes, and I don't want to have to hear all of his nonsense until November. But there's a lot to work with when it comes to Republicans if they can just run a very competent campaign and hound him a lot. So we'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about the big turnout and stuff that occurred. There are reports about the massive turnout of Democrats compared to Republicans. And I just had a when I saw the announcement, I was like, oh my gosh. And then I thought about it a little bit, and so there I had a humorous kind of thought. I think you guys will get a kick out of it. But also there's some Republicans on the right who are very anti-Iran war, anti-Iran strikes, that are claiming that this is the thing that is making Republicans stay home, and that's why more Democrats came out to vote than Republicans the other night in Texas. And I don't believe that is the case. So before we jump in everything, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation on the website, because there's cost to stream, run my site, all the good stuff. So you guys can support. Very much to appreciate it, and appreciate you guys. You guys can also check out different merch that's available at the store as well, like different t-shirts and mugs and so on. And you guys can also check out different books and stuff that I have written as well, mostly fiction. Yeah, mostly fiction. I got some nonfiction, like, of course, God is blatantly against abortion, which is going to really come in handy when it comes to people like James Talarico, who have the most absurd views. I may have to do a new edition just to include some of the crazy stuff that he is throwing out there. And there's more things than just some of the crazy interviews that he's had recently. People are starting to go back on his Twitter feed, and there's some wild stuff there. So we'll go through some tweets that are pretty wild. So I think, as a matter of fact, I just posted one on Facebook, and someone said, I am no longer worried about Texas now. Because I think there's, again, a lot that Republicans have to work with when it comes to Talarico. Now, it's funny. Someone left a comment, and I'm kind of still going back and forth with them, but it was a Black Democrat, I presume, and they're like, why is someone as young as you so into this stuff? Don't you have a job? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, how old do you think I am? Was my first question. And she said, hopefully not more than 40 with the way that you act, which I'm not sure what that's supposed to mean. I don't know how women in their 30s are significantly different than women in their 40s, which I'm mid 30s. So that's weird. And so I'm like, I think it's strange to say, hey, women of voting age, that they shouldn't be interested in politics and all this other different kind of stuff. And she's like, I didn't say voting. And I'm like, no, I said voting age. Like I'm obviously a woman of voting age. Why shouldn't I care about politics? And like, that's all you care about, that you're a Republican, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, this is my political page. This page is dedicated to my opinions as a conservative. Like, why wouldn't I talk about those things? And it's just like a weird thing to complain about. And if you guys who watch me live, which there's people watching on Facebook and YouTube and Twitch and stuff, I know you guys can all see each other, but I see you, but you guys know that's not all that I talk about. You guys know I talk about religion a lot. I talk about what a church, what happened at church. I talk about going to church. And today was before my show was watching a Ruslan video, because Alex O'Connor got into a debate with the man who wrote the book, The Air We Breathe, which goes over Western ethics and how Christianity shaped the world that we live in a positive way. And man, Alex O'Connor said some wild stuff in it. So that's kind of what Ruslan was pointing out. And like he like pulled out some random scriptures in the first clip Ruslan critiqued, and they trying to say that these were about child sacrifice when they clearly weren't. And he tried to pull out something that Paul wrote and tried to allege that Paul was, I don't know, giving men permission to have unconsensual sex with their wives. And it was like, whoa. Like, why? And it's just an uncharitable view of the Bible, and he reads it in a way that Christians obviously wouldn't read it and haven't read it. And if you're going to try to do an internal critique of the religion, you really should do it from the perspective of the religion itself, and not you just trying to find the most uncharitable position possible, especially for someone who doesn't believe in like objective morality and or anything like that. So anyway, I'm very interested in other topics, and sometimes I bring up anime and other things like that. So there's lots of things in my life besides politics. I very much encourage you guys, even though we come on every day and talk about it, to not make that your life. And I think so many people who do have such a hatred around Trump are really sickening their brains because they're so deranged all the time. And they probably think about him a lot more than I do. But I have been involved with politics for a long time, but not just like as an activist person, but as someone financially paid to do it. Like I was the creative director for the Michigan Republican Party. I was very loyal in that job, but I also got paid to do that. So it is like, it is a profession. So it's not just like a hobby. I think it would be fine if it was a hobby. A lot of people get on the internet and talk about things that they like and it's a hobby. That's fine. But it's something that, besides work at the Michigan Republican Party, different candidates have inquired about the different work that I do with video editing and graphics and, working on different mailers and things like that. So if you're asking how I got a job, like that's all pretty involved with it. And by the way, your negative comments, FYI, everything on Facebook is monetized. And even if it wasn't, they still help with engagement. So you haters who want to say crap about me, thank you. Thank you. So it's so weird. It's so weird. I think I blocked this person the other day. But anyway, let's hop to it. Let's hop to the election stuff. I just thought it was so bizarre. Like, why are you talking about politics all the time? This page is about politics. So anyway, it's nice when you're good at stuff and, you know, you're passionate about something and you can also make a living off of it, I guess. But people would ask at the when I was at the Michigan Republican Party, because I wasn't too I just basically stayed in my office all the time and worked. And so they had asked my sister, like, does she like her job? And she's like, yeah, she thinks it's great. And so I would do hit pieces on like Hillary Clinton, because that was like that era when Donald Trump won in 2016. And man, I love pumping that stuff out. There was one video I did because Angela Rye was on maybe CNN or something, talking about when people Donald Trump says X, Y, and Z, we black people we think about water hoses and getting attacked and blah blah blah. Just like really appealing to a bunch of racial nonsense. So I decided to. I was in Lansing. Was where the office was. He was having a rally in Novi, and I got an umbrella because it was raining. Took my camera, and my boss was kind of like, things were tight because it was like election time or whatever, and the donors weren't as lax with the money because Trump, he was the candidate, but he wasn't like he was prickly, you know, at the time. So she was kind of like, I don't know about you going, because you know they paid me for the mileage and stuff that I put in my car. I'm like, no, this is a good idea. So they relented, and I drove to Novi, and was walking around in the rain with my umbrella and my camera, just asking people, like, what does make America great again mean to you? And I made a really great video. I didn't even end up going in the rally to stay. You know, I was just interviewing people out in the line, and I came out with a really great video, because there's for as long as he's been running as a Republican, you know, people have tried to twist his campaign, or what people think that he represents, to try to do all this racial division. I talked the other day about how Donald Trump was talking about the open borders and how we need to stop having everybody just coming in everywhere. And he mentioned that in Mexico, there's people coming in who are rapists and they're not sending their best and so on. He's like, and I assume some are good people, but you know, but he's like, people are coming from even beyond Mexico. And if you watch that video back, you're like, oh my gosh, that is correct. There are people who are illegally immigrating into the country, who are criminals, who are rapists, who have raped and murdered Americans. And there's a lot of people coming who aren't just coming from Mexico. And there's good people who come over, but a lot of people are adult males. Not just, you know, like women and children in dire need. A lot of them are adult males. And people made wild claims, like Donald Trump said that all Mexicans are rapists. That was a crazy thing people repeated nonstop in 20 in 2016. It was really wild. Anyway. There was a big election last night. So there was a report that there was more Democrats who came out to vote than Republicans in the primary. And it's been 20 years since that has happened. So people were really flipping out. Democrats very excited, Republicans very, you know, nervous about it. And at first when I hear that, I'm like, ooh, it's been 20 years since something like that's happened, huh? And then I started reading an article about it, and it was like, not since 2008. And I'm like, 2008? That wasn't that long ago. What do you mean? What do you mean? 2008 was just like yesterday. What do you mean? 20 years ago. And so I'm like, well, I guess 20 years ago isn't that long of a time, because 2008, it just doesn't seem like it was that long ago. I remember the Obama election cycle pretty, you know, vividly. That was the first election I got to vote for. You know, McCain wasn't my favorite, but I certainly voted for him over Obama. I remember my church was having service at Ramada down in Southfield, and there was a man who came up to me and was like, have you considered who you're voting for? It was an elder black gentleman. I didn't know him, and I said, yeah, I'm going to vote for John McCain. He's like, well, why aren't you voting for Obama? I said, because Obama believes and supports some things that are contrary to my religious values as a Christian. He's like, but Obama's a Christian. And so I started laying down some of the things that I didn't like about Barack Obama. And he seemed very taken aback, like he hadn't known those things. And he kind of left me alone at that point. But I'm just like, I know I talk about kids being dumb in politics all the time, but some people know their stuff. Some people know their stuff. And so I remember one night I got a phone call from, people who track to see how you're voting. You're doing data collection or whatever for voter turnout on the day. And so, now I just like ignore those calls. I find them to be really annoying. But someone called for me. I answered, and they're like, hey, this is for you. And I answer. They're like, who are you voting for? I'm like, I'm absolutely 100% voting for John McCain. And they're like, oh, okay. Because with a smile, but pretty aggressive. Yes, this just felt like yesterday, guys. Was that really that long ago? So it made me feel better about the 20-year figure, I guess. Because if you really are flipping out about the turnout in Texas and the Democrats being that enthused, Obama still didn't win Texas that year either. And he's like, he was a pretty big deal. I don't like him. I never liked him. I don't like his politics, and I don't care for him too much either. But he was a big deal in 2008 for sure. People riding that wave of change, hope and change. And he still didn't win that state. Now I understand there's some more shifting of demographics, and a lot of people have left California and flooded into Texas, and Austin is super liberal, and maybe there's more Democrats in the state than there was maybe in 2008. But again, that enthusiasm in that primary didn't translate to an Obama win, and it's not automatically going to translate to a Talarico win. And I don't think that if you're looking at Obama versus McCain, old man McCain is how they were talking about him. Like, I don't know, there's the hope and change stuff because McCain was the figure of, even though he was a new candidate, he wasn't the incumbent. They were tying him a lot to the Bush age. There were commercials that were of someone looking in a rear view mirror, and if you looked in the rear view mirror, it was George W. Bush, and they're like, voting for McCain is going backwards. I don't think it was. I don't know if a PAC did that ad or if that was actually the Obama campaign, but some things like that were very effective because people wanted to break away from the Bush policies of the forever wars. People, the media really, really hated George W. Bush. He was like a serial killer monster who was really stupid in the eyes of the media. Like, they really painted a horrible picture of him. Now he's just a sweet old man who takes candy from a shell and paints funny pictures. But at the time there was really, really a lot of Bush hate, and they were really trying to tie McCain to that. So he was not the change candidate, just like Hillary Clinton did not feel like the change candidate in 2016. McCain wasn't the change candidate. So there was just a lot pushing people toward Barack Obama beyond him, being the first black president, half black president, but black president, So beyond, there's a lot of reasons why people would go and just join the hype of the Obama train, and it still didn't turn Texas blue. So I don't think that Talarico is the one to do it. I'm not saying it's impossible, because I don't like to be wrong. So I don't like to speak in absolutes. So I'm not going to say that it's not possible for him to win. However, I think there's a lot wrong with Talarico that when you start blasting in different places, in different ads and mailers and so on, you're going to run into a lot of issues. I think a lot does depend on who Republicans put forward. I know a lot of people aren't happy with Cornyn, and who has to do a runoff, by the way. He didn't get to 50% and maybe would prefer Paxton. But Trump did put out something about how he's going to try to he's going to endorse one of them, and he wants the other to drop out. Now, I don't think he should do that. I think that he should try to maybe convince someone to drop out for the sake of unity and rallying around trying to beat Talarico and not wasting a lot of time and resources on a runoff. I do think that maybe he should get involved in that regard. But what if he endorses Cornyn and Paxton still decides to stay in, and then Trump has to kind of be on his bully pulpit from Truth Social, trashing him and upsetting folks who want to support him? It just seems like that's not the way that you build unity. You know, I think if he wanted to have a private conversation, which people may report on anyway, like, you know, in Politico or Axios when they get whiff of these things. I'm not saying it would be totally secret, but if he wanted to just sit down and have a conversation with Paxton or Cornyn, however he wants to, you know, whatever, sit them down, have a conversation, and just say, we really do need to win this state. It's crucial. We should be directing finances in other races and not have to focus so much on this. The fact that there's a runoff automatically is going to afflict our numbers. And we don't need more disunity. For the sake of the party, can one of you, or he could just flat out say who he wants to step down. A lot of people at this point are thinking that is Paxton. Unless he changed his mind in the past couple hours, and it's all, if it could already have changed, but he could just say, hey, you should step down. I don't think he should do a True Social post and say, I'm endorsing this person, the other one needs to step out. Because there's always a chance that someone will not listen to you and will just breed more division. So I think that's a private conversation. I think Trump really shouldn't endorse a lot of these people. And I understand that sometimes it has really helped, or people believe it's helped a lot of people. Like, he's endorsed some really good people. Ron DeSantis was a really good person to endorse, and he's been a fantastic governor for Florida. But he has endorsed some people, especially in the 2022 midterms, that have not been good and did not do well. Really didn't do well. In Michigan, we got smacked up and down. It was really bad for us. And the ticket was pretty much handpicked by Trump. Tudor Dixon wasn't really handpicked by him, but he did end up endorsing her. But the Attorney General candidate, the Secretary of State candidate, he did like handpick those because those folks were really, really, deeply ingrained in the election interference stuff. And, once that movement was kind of with them and Trump's hand was upon them, it was just really going in one direction that couldn't be stopped. And it just, didn't end well for us in Michigan. And we really should have been able to at least win that Attorney General seat. Dana Nessel is insane. Now we have the Secretary of State who's running for governor, Jocelyn Benson. So I just I don't think his endorsements are always great. And that many times are based around loyalty to maybe him, or at that point in time in 2022, a lot of it was about boasting his theories on election, the 2020 election and stuff. And even on election night when some people lost, he was like giddy about some people losing, or kind of braggy about it because they didn't go hard enough on the 2020 rhetoric. So when he then turned around and blamed 2020 election losses on the pro-life movement, which I'm not saying didn't have some kind of effect, um, but that, I'm like, bro, are we not going to talk about some of your bad picks? Like, okay. So anyway, I don't always find his endorsements to be helpful. So I don't think he should endorse one. Him telling someone to drop out is pretty much kind of an endorsement, but I don't think there should be like some kind of truth social announcement and then like bully pulpit stuff if someone doesn't obey. I don't think that's great. I don't think that's great. I think this should be privately done and they should come to some kind of agreement. This stuff happens all the time, by the way, in politics. Usually it doesn't quite get this far. But people will have meetings behind closed doors. People will make phone calls and so on to try to get someone to drop out for unity's sake or whatever. Make a deal. Maybe you could serve on this. You can get this kind of position if you do that. You know, it happens all the time, from as bottom rung as for politics as you could possibly think. So I hope they can reach some kind of agreement. With Cornyn being the incumbent, and again, I know there's a lot of people who aren't happy with him, but that does put them in a strong position. People say that Paxton is a strong, well, people like Paxton say he's a strong candidate or whatever, but Cornyn, you know, I guess will be the last time he probably runs because he's up there. I know there's a lot of people who don't like him. I don't live in Texas, so I'm not gonna vote for him one way or another. I recall him supporting Joe Biden's gun bill with like the red flag laws. So there was so much rage against Republicans who participated in that. I remember Tim Pool being like, I'm going to personally see it too, these people lose their seats and so on. I don't know if they're still going to have that same energy if he becomes a candidate. I don't know how much that's on people's minds, but I've never forgotten that Cornyn did that. So he's not my favorite Republican. But I do, at the end of the day, want Texas to make the right decision for whatever is going to be best to retain that Senate seat. But hopefully, either way, it'll be fine. But let's talk about Talarico a little bit. Talarico! James Talarico. So Greg Price has been posting a lot of stuff. And so there's this gem.
Trans children are God's children, made in God's own image. There's nothing wrong with them. Nothing at all. They are perfect, they are beautiful, and they are sacred. Bullying children is immoral. It's a sin, a special kind of sin.
When James Talarico talks about how he is like a legacy, like pastor, and you know, he's multi-generation, blah blah blah, do people not understand that we're talking? I don't know how progressive his background is as far as like his family history, but he himself is super progressive. And I don't, he goes on these talk shows and he says the most off stuff that I've talked about at length. His positions on abortion, like trying to say, you say the abortion case is made in the Bible because Mary was given a choice, so life includes consent. And he said that on the Joe Rogan podcast, and he said it at other times. Of course, this is ridiculous. One, from just a sad kind of standpoint, that's not technically true. Just, you really need just a sperm and an egg to meet, and you, whether you do that in a lab or or a man actually forced himself upon a woman, it is possible to create life without consent. I'm not saying I'm for that, but just from a technical standpoint, it's just not true as some kind of concept. Now, should life be made with consent? Sure, absolutely. In a marriage of a man and a woman, FYI. When it came to Mary, which is obviously a very special circumstance, um, abortion is about killing someone, and that's one-sided. Like, you don't ask the baby's permission if it wants to die before you make that decision. So it's not really about consent. It's one-sided. Rape is one-sided too. The man wants to do it, therefore he does it. I guess most murder is usually one-sided. They want to kill someone, so they do it. You know. um so it's not even like in the same sort of category there. But if we want to get technical in the story, the angel told Mary what was going to happen, and she's like, good, that's cool with me. Not will you sign these consent forms before the savior is in your womb or something? That's, so it's not great sort of thinking from him theologically. He told people that we talked about, maybe, I don't know if this was last week or the week before, but he claimed that the New Testament or the Gospels isn't mostly Jesus teaching or praying, but it's mostly him healing. I'm like, that's not true. The healing stuff is pretty important, but the one way or another, the miracles are meant to affirm who he is. One way or another, like, that's the purpose of them. They're great because they do bless the lives of all these people, but that is the purpose of them. So to try to downplay his teaching and discipleship and his messages, like the healing sections, miracles will be, they're great, amazing moments, but there'll be like a couple of sentences, versus entire like chapters of parables and teachings like the Sermon on the Mount. It was just very odd. But the reason why he said that is because he wanted to condemn Republicans for not voting on healthcare the way that he would like them to vote. So he's used scripture in the most slimiest kind of ways. But I don't think people are maybe aware of, all the trans stuff, which is a fad now and something that a lot of people are really trying to get away from. And if we keep going down this road and talking about all the kind of absurd stuff that he said, like, they're perfect. It's wrong to pick on these children. Well, pick on them how? The reason why he's talking about it's wrong to pick on these children and they're sacred and perfect and made in the image of God, how they are, which I love how they're always talking about love your neighbor, you're made in the image of God, but they never want to bring that same kind of logic to the preborn. Just chuck them straight out of a window, right? Never want to apply that logic to them. But he was testifying against a bill trying to protect women's sports. So, hey, we want to protect women's sports, which, by the way, is separated on the basis of sex. And he's like, how dare you pick on these boys who claim that they're girls? They're sacred. What do you mean? They're perfect how they are. They were perfect how they are as men, young men who need to play with other young men. Okay? They don't need to chop their balls off. They don't need the puberty blockers. They need to play with other men and hopefully grow out of the nonsense. So if we get back into this is how he thought about women's sports, or when he said that God is non-binary, which he did say that too. Is Texas going to be okay with that kind of nonsense? I don't think so. I don't think so at all. There's the thing about the non-binary is a very short clip. I played it yesterday. There you go.
is both masculine and feminine and everything in between. God is non-binary.
Do we think that's going to play well in Texas? Do we think stuff like that's going to play well in Texas? Do you think, like, I know the black church is very much uniform voting Democrat, but you can definitely make them non-enthused to go out there and vote and support you. So if they should pump this stuff everywhere, they should put it in black media, like, I mean, the local channels and radio. They should pump this stuff out, like the Trump ads against Kamala Harris. God is non-binary. Blah blah blah. That's what they should keep doing. That's what they should keep doing. He's also open borders. Do you think that's going to play well in Texas?
Our southern border should be like our front porch. There should be a giant welcome mat out front.
A giant welcome mat out front. I kind of agree with Chip Roy is a little bit, like, maybe we need to pause it kind of all together, because it's kind of a lot right now. This stuff isn't going to play well in Texas when you really start pushing this stuff. I don't know if people wanted to get Crockett out first, but when they start really focusing on Talarico, it's not going to be good for him. I haven't watched this clip, but this is apparently one about abortion. Or maybe I did. This looks familiar, actually, this background.
Before we go further, I want to acknowledge that our trans community needs abortion care too.
Oh, I did watch this.
Defending trans Texans is something we have to do every day at the state capitol. And you better believe I'll be giving sermons on that too. So when I use the word woman, it should not be understood as an exhaustive term, but rather as a lens through which to understand, examine, and interrogate patriarchy. Similar to how we specify anti-Black racism.
So when you say woman, it's not an exhaustive term. It's a lens. It's a lens for how we interpret or view the patriarchy. What's the purpose of a woman? If it's just a lens, why do you need a trans woman to play on a woman's sports team? If it's just a lens. If it's just a lovely pair of glasses, if it's just some goggles, sir. It's just a lens. Trans women, I'm sorry, that'd be trans men. They can get pregnant, have babies. Oh, because they're women, right? Obviously.
I want us all to be aware of is that modern science obviously recognizes that there are many more than two biological sexes. In fact, there are 6, which honestly, Representative Hefner surprised me too. With you now. Surprised me too, because I am not well versed in this issue area. I'm not a scientist. I'm a politician. A lot worse than a scientist.
There's more than 2 biological sexes? What? Okay, there's the ova and there's a sperm. Like the egg and the sperm. What do the other 4 produce? What do the other 4 sexes produce? I'm curious, sir. I would love for him to explain that on the debate stage, please. 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 There are 6 sex. He didn't say genders, because he probably thinks there's more than that. This man said sexes. There's more. There's more. Let me see. This one is the one I posted earlier. a screenshot on Facebook where someone said, "Oh, I'm not worried about Texas anymore." Okay, this James Talarico. This is in 2020. Now, this is height of BLM madness. I never subscribed to it. I was always annoyed by it. I was right. Many people were wrong. Okay, but Ahmaud Arbery, hashtag Ahmaud Arbery, is the latest American killed by the virus of racism. The virus kills our Black neighbors if they're going jogging, playing music, sitting in church, selling CDs, or carrying a bag of Skittles. So there's a couple faces on there that you may recall. I don't remember all the details of all these particular stories, but you got Mr. Notorious convenience store robber in there, always in his cap and gown, who attacked the police and was shot. He did not die with his hands up, but what do these details matter? They always show Trayvon Martin as this young kid picture too, as if he didn't like beat the snot out of Zimmerman. But it goes on. It goes on. White skin gives me and every white American immunity from the virus, but we spread it wherever we go through our words, our actions, and our systems. We don't have to be showing symptoms like a white hood or Confederate flag to be contagious. The only cure is diagnosing the virus within ourselves and taking dramatic actions to contain the spread. The first small step is proclaiming loudly and unequivocally that Black Lives Matter. And so May said, Texas is going to love this. They are. They are. First of all, there's a propaganda take on the framing around the details of these events. When people are killed for various reasons, and if someone's murdered, it's bad, right? When people do it for racial animus, that is terrible. To pretend like white people aren't attacked based off of race, aren't discriminated against, or sometimes in danger due to their race, it's just not true. To act like, oh, just white people, we spread this disease everywhere we go. There's a lot of white people who aren't racist like that. I'm not saying there's not. Sometimes people don't like racist spicy memes or something like that, but to the degree of people being murdered and things like that, no. No. But this is 2020 and people were saying some wild stuff. So he's gonna have a fun time. He's gonna have a fun time. I wonder, I mean, Jasmine Crockett probably didn't want to attack him from the left, but, or I guess it would be maybe from the right because he'd be from the left, but her team should have pointed out like how crazy he was abusing scripture and stuff. And I know she's a Democrat and maybe doesn't want to play that game, but I as just a Christian, and I don't know how, I know she considers herself to be one. She does some wild stuff and says some wild stuff, but that's stuff this wild. I would have at least came out against the way that he was misusing the Bible. You know, I would have at least said something like that. And it's funny because he'll say all this stuff and then people will say, well, he's against separation of church. He's for separation of church and state. You know, he's calling out these nationalists, Christian nationalists and stuff. He has his time to flip tables on his website. So I'm a white Christian and I do it better than all of you other people. I'm a real Christian is his shtick. and he talks a lot of blasphemous stuff, just blatantly blasphemous. And you have all these people on the left are like, oh my gosh, he's a real Christian, and it was the right-wing movement that started in the 70s with this pro-life stuff. I'm like, that's ridiculous. Early church history, I'm talking first century, spoke out against abortion, against murdering babies, and they saw it as murder. Early church fathers, history, you cannot agree with that, but that is part of our history, that we did not like that stuff. It's not something that right-wing evangelicals made up. It's not. So it does bother me that there's all these people, many of them not religious, going around saying, well, he's actually what a real Christian's supposed to be. It's annoying. That's why I didn't want him to win. Not because I think he's going to be a bigger threat than Jasmine Crockett. I think that she probably would have been the bigger threat, even, because she'll go on a show and she'll sound crazy or whatever to us, but a lot of folks will see her as a fighter. But she can still, we'll say, code switch and go around some groups and they'll like it. But a lot of times when you're appealing to different audiences, they like when people of color are a little aggressive when it comes to them defending the stuff that they like. And that's just true on the right and the left. Sometimes this is true for both, guys. But Talarico and all the super radical stuff that won't play well, again, if they blast this stuff in the Hispanic community, even in the Black community, I know they vote hardcore Democrat all the time, but that doesn't mean that they're going to be enthused to go out to vote for this nonsense, especially after he beat a Black woman. So I would blast this stuff everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. Let's see what Greg Price has posted a lot of stuff with Talarico. But while I'm going through his feed right now, trying to see what else he might have on him. But something else that's been talked about, especially since Crenshaw lost his seat in the primary, is that people like Mike Cernovich and other folks are saying, see, this is the turnout from the Republicans was low, and the Rhino neocons, their day is over. People don't like the strikes in Iran, and we're going to lose the midterms, blah, 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 blah. He's already done it. Trump has already done it. When you start something, you better finish your objectives. I hate the pity pat, like, done. Now they've actually killed a lot of prominent heads of Iran, so they've done a lot of damage from this point to the regime. So it wasn't like a little rhetorical sort of strike, It had some real teeth. But they've already done it. They've already engaged. They're already in action. So what do you kind of want now? What is your objective? Be like, oh, Trump betrayed his base. He's already done it. So if you are a right-wing activist who is just complaining about all this stuff, what is your goal now? For Trump to say, I'm sorry, it's not going to happen. It's not a style one way or another, but he's already engaged in this. You can keep complaining, hoping that, like, I don't want it to be a forever war. Trump doesn't like forever wars. He very much campaigned against that, and I don't think that's in him to do that anyway. But as long as it lasts a couple weeks and people are actually okay with it. There was a CBS poll that had like 80% of Republicans approved as long as it was a couple weeks or months or whatever. If it goes into years and so on, of course they won't like it. But as long as I think days and weeks, it was like 80 something percent approval if you're on the right. Now, there was a back and forth I engaged with the other night with someone, because there was a CBS poll that had in the 80s, which, by the way, there's Fox News polls and other polls that have high support from Republicans about the strike. But someone had posted another poll, and they're like, aha, this one's not at 80. And this is a Reuters poll, because someone above them had pointed out, like, this is for Trump's base. Trump's base approves of this strike. And so they posted this. And when you still look at Republicans in this, it says 55% of Republicans agree. And so I replied, I'm like, that it still says 55% agree. And they're like, okay, but 45% disagree. I'm like, no, it doesn't say 45 disagrees. It says that 13% of Republicans don't agree with it. That's what it says. And they're like, okay, but it still says that 45% didn't say yes. And I respond, I'm like, it's okay if people don't know how they feel about it. It's okay if people don't have a strong opinion about it. They don't feel informed about it. And if it says they don't know or they skip the question. That's what that gray section is right here. But that 32%, there's more people who don't know than flat out said no. And that number, even combined with the disprove, is still not the majority. The majority of Republicans still agree. And then they said, well, don't you think that it's still bad that the base doesn't agree more and it's not like in the 80%? I'm like, it is on other polls, but you picked this poll to try to combat the fact that that this is for his base and they agree with it. And this poll that you picked that is lower, I'll give you that, than CBS and other polls, still has that Republicans approve of it. So it's fine if you don't like it. And again, it's fine if you don't know how you feel about it. It's whatever if you don't care. If you might be like, oh, they bombed Iran, my eggs are still X amount of dollars. Or maybe you'd be like, oh, that sucks because gas is $3.39, I think, right now. Like, I saw the gas station. I'm like, oh gosh. I'm like, why did it jump? Like 40 cents? No, it's much more than 40 cents, maybe 60 cents. Like, oh gosh. I'm like, oh yeah. The war in the Middle East will do that. It'll definitely change the prices of the gas. So it does affect you in ways. Okay, but it's fine if you don't know or don't have a strong opinion on it or whatever. But people pretending like this is the thing that's going to break elections and this is why we didn't have huge turnout in Texas is absurd to me. Why do you think it's this issue that just happened, but it's not tariffs? Why is it not tariffs, which a lot of people have different businesses where it would impact them? I've seen a lot of people talk about the price of tariffs keep changing and it keeps cutting into their margin. I've seen that. You can disagree. You can pretend it doesn't exist. There's lots of people who would say otherwise. I've never been into the tariff thing. I wasn't surprised the Supreme Court shut that down. And then you just found another way to do it. But maybe that's a thing. Maybe people don't like the stuff going on with immigration. They like enforcement. They like that people aren't just spewing over the border, but they might not like how things were handled in Minnesota. I'm not saying I don't support ICE and what they do. I'm not saying I don't support Border Patrol. I'm not saying I don't support President Trump. I'm far more border hawk than he probably is. But there's people who didn't like those images on TV. And if you go on like Instagram and other places, it's bad. The crazy is just not in Minnesota, guys. So just trying to blame the Iran stuff, again, seems absurd and very convenient for folks who want to make that the talking point. And by the way, Republicans, they need better messaging than if we don't win, they're going to impeach Trump. People don't want Trump to be impeached again. And if it happens, maybe they feel like, happened before. He'll get through it again. It's a waste of time, but whatever. Like, it's not our first rodeo. I don't know how many people would feel like it's life or death. Trump will, at this point, will have a punch card, impeachment punch card or something. But that's not going to be the thing that drives people out to the polls. They need to know, because usually it does flip when you have full control of House, Senate, and presidency, that you're going to lose at least one of those things, if not both of them. That's how it usually happens. I don't want that to be the case. I don't want Hakeem Jeffries to be the Speaker of the House. I don't want that to be the case. But, we're running up a hill right now, pushing a boulder up a hill. It's going to be difficult. So we have to be firing on all cylinders. And you have to make the case to the American people that it is a good thing that Republicans hold all the levers of power, and that giving the Democrats some power and having that friction isn't a good thing. You have to make that case, and you need a stronger case than they're going to impeach Trump. And you need a different case than, if we don't pass the SAVE Act, the election's gone. The elections we didn't have the SAVE Act in the last election. I'm so annoyed by so much of the SAVE Act rhetoric from the left about minorities don't know where their birth certificates are. Bernie Sanders doesn't even know how to get one. Oh my gosh, it's so stupid. Oh my gosh, women, they're going to be so disadvantaged because they'll have to show their marriage license to prove that they're a person. It's so stupid. It really, really is. It really, really is. But this rhetoric from the right, as if everything will be lost if we don't pass this particular bill, it's just not true. Again, I've talked a lot about actual illegal, well, not illegally here, but people who aren't citizens who voted in our elections. I've talked about that. I've put a spotlight on it. It does happen. I don't think it should. I do think we need reform. I do think we can tighten things up. It is questionable why these Democrats don't want to tighten things up. A lot of it is maybe it's just like supreme Trump hatred or whatever, but because it's not rational and they don't have good arguments. But acting like everything will be lost if we don't pass the SAVE Act is just not true. I'm not saying they shouldn't pass it, but hinging everything on whether or not this passes, it just doesn't work. And in my opinion, there's other things that I would be putting more political capital in than the SAVE Act. So I just got a notification about my Facebook page. Hold on. Somehow disconnected from the live. I guess that happened a while ago. Sorry that happened. Yeah, I don't know why that disconnected. Oops. Sorry about that. But anyway, I don't think Texas is probably going to go blue. Not with Talarico. I hope they do well, whether it's Cornyn or Paxton. I really, 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 really don't like Talarico. There's a lot of Democrats out there who I find annoying, who lie, who I roll my eyes at, who there's not a lot that make my skin crawl. that I really, really disliked to such a strong degree. I really, really didn't like Kamala Harris. She's my least favorite person when they had all these Democrats running in 2020. She's my absolute least favorite one. So there was absolutely no way I was going to vote for her in 2024. I really, 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 really did not like Pete Buttigieg. I do not like Talarico. I do not like Talarico, and I want to see him go down. And I will do my part as much as I can to make sure that he is not successful in Texas. But people of Texas are the ones who got to do their part. I'll try to do mine. But Republicans have to have strong messages about why people should vote for them, not just why you shouldn't vote for the Democrats. You have to make the case for yourself, not just like run a purely negative campaign about how bad the other person is. And maybe that works better when you're an incumbent and people know you. Like Cornyn, there's some people upset with him, but he's the person, the devil we know. We'd rather go with him than allow this new person to get in or something. So he'll have that going for him if he just wants to be straight up negative. But you do need to make a strong case for why people should continue trusting you with power. And Congress needs to make a better case of that. I think these Republicans running in the Senate and in the House, we need a better message than they're going to impeach Trump. Not that I want it to happen again, but it's got to be better than that. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. Please go to blacktnews.com. Check out different content, website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do, please consider leaving a donation on the website because it does cost stream, run my site, all the good stuff you guys can support. I very much appreciate and appreciate you guys. You guys can go to the website and check out different merch that's available there. You guys can also check out different books and so on that I have on the website as well. Like, of course, God is blatantly against abortion. So you guys can check that out and other stuff as well. Like Slay Your Fear, How to Overcome. Oh, that's a wrong graphic. How to Overcome a Spirit of Fear. And I got a lot of different stuff. March is reading month. So we got some kiddos and you want to get them a cool book. This is a picture book about a baby dinosaur who dreams of being bigger. So I recommend that you guys check that out. It is a great book. Thank you guys. And I will see you hopefully on tomorrow. Don't plan any interruptions tomorrow and stuff. But